Hello, this is Akovia and I'm back with part 3 of our Gimp from Scratch series. We're going to try and dive in and actually do a little fan art today. So let's close this from last time. Control W will get rid of a tab or an image, and we're starting from scratch. So I thought we would, man, that was loud. Thought we would start with a background image, probably the easiest image that you can get approved on fan art. It's all about finding the right sources, but it's an easy thing to start with and to start to learn the GIMP. So let's go to our browser, get rid of this, and we'll go to try and pick something that's missing in fan art. So with our brand new incomplete section, here we go, we can find something that needs an image. So let's go to incomplete movies, and these are ordered by completeness. As you can see, there's only one image missing here, so on and so forth. We'll make this easy and go right to the end. There, no images for some of these. Let's start here. Come on, I know you can do it. Alright, and we're going to search Google Images. The way I like to do this is to use the search tools and search by size. So let's, for backgrounds, I would at least start here, and if not here. So let's do this for a background. Alright, there's a couple right here. That's a good one. That's a good one. 2000 by 1299, that'll work just fine. So I'm going to copy this image, and if you don't use a Magus or an image pop-up viewer, you can obviously just click on it and go to the page and grab it that way. So let's put that into the GIMP, and that should be Control Alt V. There we go. Alright, as you can see, this is a little bit bigger than what we want. So the best way to start here, well, first I'm going to get rid of the layer boundary, since I want to be able to see my edges and we're not dealing with multiple layers. And I'm also going to be changing my shortcuts as I go to make things a little bit easier. So the idea of the workflow here is we're going to compose the image with the proper aspect ratio, and then we can size it to the size that we need. Background images on fan art are all 16 by 9, and the requirement is it's 1920 by 1080. And the way that we want to deal with that, let me move this out of the way a little bit here. Not what I want. We're going to crop the image, and Y is my crop key, which isn't set up yet. So let's go to Tools, Transform Tools. Nope, there we go. Crop. I use Y. So let's go to Y, and it's just doing the size of the image for now. But what we're going to do is we want to crop it to 16 by 9, and I believe GIMP comes with that. Here's your tool presets here. Definitely going to have to move this out of the way. And it comes with a 16 by 9. And I don't know why it didn't go proper. There we go. 16 by 9. And we don't want to allow growing. Allow growing would let you select outside the image, and we want to keep it bound to the image size. So let's turn that off. And now, if we drag it, it'll stop within the constraints of the image. So this makes it easy to compose how we want our image to look. So, you know, we can go for the top or straight to the middle. This looks fine. So once we've dragged out our crop box, all you got to do is click within the box and you are cropped. and we're cropped at the proper dimension as well, or at the aspect ratio as well. So now when we size it, if we size one dimension, it'll bring the other dimension in perfectly. And I'll show you what I mean. And no, I am going to set up a shortcut here, but we want to size the image. So we're going to go to Image, Scale Image, and I'm going to make that S. Let's see. Oh, it won't let me set the shortcut because something already owns that shortcut. So we have to do this manually. I'm going to go to Keyboard Shortcuts. I'm going to do Scale Image right there. I'm going to change that to S and reassign it. It was from the smudge tool. You've got to find what shortcuts work best for you. These are just the ones it's morphed into over the years. Alright, so now when I want to scale, I hit S. Now this locks the aspect ratio. So if I want to scale just one dimension, I could unlock that and make it super wide if I wanted to, but it would keep the aspect for the height the same, which will distort your images. So we want to keep this locked, and if we put 1920 here and click down here, it should turn into 1080. Perfect. Always remember to check though and make sure it works perfectly. You will get some weird dimensions every now and then where it'll leave an extra pixel, and it could be, you might click this and it might be 1081 or 1079, just very rarely, but it does happen. If that is the case, then you could just unlock this and you could change that one pixel, which isn't going to screw up your aspect ratio. Lucky for us, it worked perfectly. So let's scale. Alright, that is our image at the proper dimensions. And luckily we picked a nice high quality resolution image, and I don't think we need to make adjustments on this. So the last thing we want to do on this, since the image looks good, is to double check our edges. And I kind of went over this before, but let's go to our View, Padding Color. I'm going to make my shortcut for this 6. Alright, let's get out of this. Now if I hit the 6 key, I want to select black to check my edges. A few ways you can do this. You can either just drag down to this corner for black and drag down to this corner for white. You can use your scales here. You would actually have to do that for black to white, or if you already have used it before, it'll be in your recently used color swatches. We could just click that. We could click white or click black. So we're going to click black. There we go. Now we really want to zoom in our edges. This is 100% right here. I mean, this is how big the image is going to be viewed, and this is what you need to look at and make sure the image holds up under this size. I actually like to see it hold up at 150 to make sure it's a really good image, but as long as it looks passable at 100%, you should be good, but always go to 100%. And make sure there's no crop lines, and it looks like we're safe on this one. So this image is ready to go. At this point, we could just export it. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-E to export, but you can also go to File, Export here as well. So Control-Shift-E, and this is also, we don't want to save in PNG, we want to save in JPEG. And this is called All Things to All Men. Actually, I hate caps. It's good enough for this. Feel free to, you should organize your artwork in some way or the other. But for this tutorial, we just need a name and export it. And like I had mentioned before in the previous tutorial, 96 is a great starting point for compression rate. So it will fit within the constraints of our size limits on fanart.tv. For backgrounds, I believe it's 1 megabyte. So I'm going to save that as default and export it. Now, if we actually go to our Documents folder, here we go, and we can check the size, well within our range, and that's going to be perfect. Alright, well, I'm going to just get rid of this image, but if you wanted to save this for further reference, or you think you might want to revisit it or use it in other artwork or such, I would probably recommend going back to your base image at full resolution, hit Control S to save, and save it as the XCF, and that will keep all of your, if you had multiple layers and you did something on one, so on and so forth, it'll keep the project file. We'll go ahead and save that. Alright, so I'm going to Control W to close that out. So that was an easy one. Let's move on to something else, like a poster. It's also a very popular section on our site. So we're going to drop this down a little bit. There we go. And that's not quite big enough. We need something at least 1,000 pixels wide by 1,426 pixels tall. Again, how big is that one? Still not big enough. Looks like the same thing. Let's try cover. And perfect. Exactly the right width and a little taller. So I'm going to copy this image and we're going to bring it into Gimp. Alright, Control Alt V, and since we're not dealing with layers, I'm going to get rid of the image boundary and layer boundary, excuse me. Alright, now just like before, we're going to start by cropping it at the proper aspect ratio so we can compose the image we want to work on. Unfortunately, Gimp doesn't come with an aspect ratio for fanart.tv posters, so let's make one. I've already figured out the aspect ratio for you, so I'm going to go to crop, which is Y key for me, and the aspect ratio for a fanart.tv poster is 500 by 713. Alright, and I know this to be correct, so I'm going to save it, but you could test it first. Save tool preset, new tool preset. It'll pop up a window over here, and let's call that FA poster, and hit the little save key. Alright, so now if I was on my 16 by 9, I need to set that as default. There's our 16 by 9 preset, and here's our fan art poster preset. So I'm going to drag that out. So as we know, the width is exactly 1,000, so we're not going to be cropping anything off that, so we can figure where we want to take it, top or bottom. And in this picture, obviously, we want to take the crop off the bottom. So let's do that, and look what we have. Perfect. 1,000 by 1,426. Alright, that should be all we need to do with cropping presets for now. But that'll make life a whole lot easier. When you get your source image, you want to use your crop tool to compose the image and use as much of the image as possible for the canvas that you're working with. So I'll always start with cropping aspect, and then you can really move in on the image. It just so happens this one was really easy. Alright, so this image actually looks really good. Even at 100%, there's probably some adjustments we can do later. But the biggest thing we have to deal with is this. As per the rules on the site, we cannot have any extra text other than the logo, and if there was a tagline. I don't personally leave the taglines on. but you can if you like. And of course you can have zero text, but that's a bit ambitious for this image. Could be done, but I'm not that passionate about this movie, never seen it, to want to spend the time doing that. So let's tackle this. Alright, there are a few ways you can tackle this, and let's get back over here. First thing I would like to do is to duplicate this layer so we always have our original dupe. Alright. The other thing, and I should have done it earlier, let's go ahead and save. So I'm going to do this, and I should have put background on the last one, but I'm going to do this as poster. Nice save point. We screw up. Program happens to lock up on you for some reason. I hardly ever have a problem with it, but you're just being safe. And then you can just hit Control Save as you're working and you think about it, and you always have your backup. Alright, so the couple ways one thing I want to do before I even get started on this is check our edges. Alright, I'm going to just go to black, and that's at 150%, and our edges look good. There are no crop lines anywhere. Alright, so let's talk about getting rid of this text. There are quite a few ways. There are filters we can work with. We can use the clone tool. We can try and patch it with areas out here. I'm not going to really go into that, but I can show you a little bit. If you copy and paste that, add it to a new layer, you can kind of move and drop it back on top, which looks pretty good from out there, but a lot of times you'll find you'll see the hard lines in there, so you still got blending and such to do. This is a good way when you have like stripes or something very precise, and you can copy and paste that and put them over top and keep everything in perfect alignment. We're not going to do it this way because we don't really have enough to work with to cover all this without making it look pretty funky. Another one is I'm going to introduce you to, and I don't have an idea if it's going to work. This doesn't always work on every image, but let me try. First thing I'm going to do is select the text. Alright. And the more I think about it, the more I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to show you anyway. We're going to go to Filters, Enhance, and we're going to try and heal the selection. Now, the Heal Selection tool will sample from outside where you're selected and try and make the best guess to fill that for you. And in this case, we do not want from all around because it'll pick pixels from up here. I'll just show you what the default will do. Let's see. Now this is some pretty heavy computing, and I've got a pretty fast computer. But you can see it takes a little bit to get through it. Actually, that did way better than I thought. Let's escape, and Control-Shift-A should deselect our marching ants. Wow, I'm very surprised. We just do it again. And I'll show you a little shortcut here. If you go up to your filters, it'll show you that recently used, it'll keep a list of recently used filters, but to just repeat the same action, Control F. And if you want to bring up the last action to adjust it, hit Control Shift F. So since we're redoing this, I'm going to select it again. If I want to make an adjustment, I'd hit Control Shift F, and it'll bring up the same filter again. I can change it if I want. If I know that it's going to be the exact same thing, just do it again. I'm going to hit Control F. Let's see what it does. Absolutely beautiful. Well, that even surprised me on that one. But not to be, just to cover all my bases, make another duplicate of this. Drag it to the top, get rid of that, Alright, I did want to introduce you to the clone tool. Clone tool is the manual way of doing what it does. And the way that this works is you select an area you want to paint from, and then you paint to that area. And I'm going to use my shortcut to increase my brush size here. Make sure, I like to use a fuzzy brush, but sometimes you need a solid brush. It all depends on what type of cloning you're going to do. But just to introduce you to the tool, I'm going to hit the control key and click, and that'll set that little marker there. It says I want to paint from this area. Now if I come down here, I can just start painting, and you can see how it follows, and it will pick up wherever that is from. So it will follow where you're from. And sometimes this can be really tricky if you got a really small sample area to pull from and a very large area to cover. It just takes time and precision to do your best. Another thing I'd like to show you with this tool is some of the modifier keys. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to basically click drag. Well, not click drag. I don't know what the proper term is, but we're going to do a whole row at once, let's say. We're going to select from here. We're going to put our cursor here, and we can just drag, but sometimes you want to be super accurate, and so we're going to hit Control Shift excuse me, and now you'll see that the cursor is constrained. I believe it's 15-degree angles, but it'll keep it in a perfect straight line and sample perfectly from a straight line as well, so you're not deviating as you're just dragging. Not important with this one, but still good to know when you have a precise clone that you need to do. So we're just going to, and if you just used Shift instead of Control Shift, it's not constrained, so you can pick angles that you want. We're going to do Control Shift and click, and you can see it cloned the whole thing. Obviously it's not perfect in this case. We could, excuse me, click, there we go, and do that again. But still not the best way for this. As you can see kind of how it's been cloning. But that should give you an idea of the power of the clone tool, and this is just a short showing of what you can do with it. But since our filter actually did such a wonderful job, we won't need to do this all manually this time. And I think you can see where the precision will come in, because if you look closely you can just kind of see that it's layered. I just did it quickly to cover it up to show you. I much prefer our other because it mixes it up. Alright, so that was an introduction to the layer tool and one of our filters, and now we're going to do just a tad bit of image adjustment. And the two things I want to do is I want to check the levels, the dark levels and light levels, and hue and saturation, and I'm sure that they are not set up for my shortcut, so I'm going to go ahead and do those real quick. Keyboard shortcuts, let's do hue saturation. I use H. I'm going to just forget about the other tool. And keyboard shortcuts, levels, and I use L. I use these all the time, more than I use the other tools that they're assigned to by default, which is why I don't mind changing them up. Alright, so first let's look at our levels. This isn't bad. I'd like to see it just a hair darker myself. So, level adjustment. This is how to explain this. This is your dark end right here. This is your light. See how that arrow is white, and these are your midtones. And this graph represents how many dark tones are in the image, in this case mid dark tones. There's more in this area than anywhere else in the image. It's a pretty dark image, and actually I'm on the wrong one to show the live adjustments. But you can see it's not a bright image, so you can see that the histogram goes way down here. There's just not a lot of white and lighter colors in it. So let's get on the right layer. I'm just going to drag that to the top and try that again. Now see, if I drag the white, you can see the whole image getting lighter. These are midtones. I reset that. And here are darks. I'll zoom out one so I can see the entire image. I like it just a tad deeper like that. This is a good way to get rid of if you got some pixelation or compression artifacts that are in the blacks of your image. This can help smooth those out. I would always take a look. Almost all images could use a slight adjustment. See, I only went 5. It doesn't take much, but I need to do a whole tutorial on levels at some point. But there are also very good tutorials that are online already. You should look into it. The other thing I'll show you with levels is you can have it do it auto. So if we pick what we want to be black, say if we picked this to be the deepest, blackest color on the screen, that turns everything black. It's kind of a neat effect if you ask me. I actually kind of like it. Anyway, you can reset and you can pick. Truly the black point would obviously be probably here. So let's pick that. And it's already there, so we didn't change anything. Technically the levels are good. I just like to pop it up a little bit. And this would pick our white point, which it shouldn't change anything either. Alright, so I'm going to take that up to 5. And I'm going to, it looks pretty good, but I want to add a little bit of saturation. Not too much. We're just going to bring that up. And by the way, you should have seen these were all in colors. Hue, saturation, and levels, and it shows my shortcuts now too. So I'm going to bring up hue. Oops. There we go. And I'm just going to bump up the saturation probably to about 8. Just makes the greens and the colors a little bit deeper. You don't want to get too crazy because you can really oversaturate an image easier. But it's a nice little tool to add a little pop to an image that seems a little dull. You can see the difference here. Let me hit OK on that, and we can look back and forth. Just makes it a little softer and deeper all the way around. Alright, I like it. I think the sharpness looks pretty good. You can play around with sharpness, and I will show you. This will be the last thing, but let me show you the sharp tool in case we did want to add a little sharpness. It could use a little, not too much. So, hitting my shortcut keys before I assign them. The filter I like to use the most. Now I use different ones, but let's see. We're going to go to Enhance, Sharpen. I believe this is the one I want. 2 of them are named very similar. I'll tell you. No, that wasn't it. Filters, Enhance, Sharpen. That's it. So let me set my shortcut. Filters, Enhance, Sharpen. I set that to 3. Alright, so 3. Part of the plugin package we installed the refocus plugin, so you do have that at your disposal. Now I find the defaults here are just superb. I hardly ever touch them, and I'll show you how we can actually make adjustments afterwards. So we're going to hit sharp, and you can see it actually brought in quite a bit of detail without looking too over sharp. but what it did is it put us another layer above our layer, and it set it at an opacity of 80 by default. Now, if we're just a hair too sharp, we can just drag the slider down and around to make it sharper or less sharp. I'd say, and then you can turn this layer on and off to see the difference. Really kind of makes that Ferris wheel pop a little bit more. There's 100%. Still think I'm going to drag it down just a little bit. It really didn't need much, if any, but I wanted to show you how to use the filter. That's fine. We could just hit export now, but I like, before I do that, I'd like to create a layer of all the effects applied. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer from visible. So it's only going to count these two layers. It can't see below this layer because its opacity is 100. But for clearness sake, let me turn that one off. So when I do new layer from visible, you can right click any layer, and I use a shortcut, new layer from visible. There you go. Now that's what the sharpen filter applied, and you've got a brand new layer. Wonderful. Well, this looks ready to upload to fanart.tv, so let's export it, and JPEG's ready. Since I already saved it, the project file is an XCF, it knows what to name this one, and hit export. It remembered my setting. It won't always, it will default to if it is a JPEG that you've opened, a lot of times it'll go back. So if it was 100%, it'll try and save it as 100%, and you have to bring it down. So you can hit load default there, or just scroll at will. Anyway, 96 is what we want. And that is exported and saved. Alright, well, we think we touched on quite a few topics today, and we actually got some artwork done. Let's double check our size in case we need to change that. Poster, that's good, it's under a meg. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this run and getting a few things done. Maybe I haven't decided for the next tutorial, but we're either going to do a banner or maybe a thumb and set up the aspect ratios for those. We may even tackle this logo next. I haven't decided yet. Please comment if you have any questions or want to see something in the future tutorial series. You can comment on the YouTube page, but I prefer that you comment in the fan art forums. Just a better forum to go back and forth and help people out with, and I can post images if I need to, so on and so forth. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.